Just watch her. Don't bite. It's with them. Excuse me, this is mine. ये मेरा है. समझी? समझी क्या? नहीं समझी.
Hi, I have some reading updates. I'm having my evening tea. Alright, so I finished reading volume 5 of Heaven Official Spacing, and this volume made me laugh so much. I was enjoying it. I had such a good time reading this volume, but I do fear that the next volume is going to just destroy me because it feels like, the calm before the storm? Yeah, before the storm. And is it like, that thing when people say that you shouldn't laugh too much because you may cry a lot or something like that? I don't know, but I think that's what's going to happen. I really enjoyed the adventure and also the three backstories. So, in this volume, Shelan has been given this new mission where he has to infiltrate the Mount Donglu, where a lot of ghosts are assembling because they're going to have this battle royale where they will be deciding who will become the next Ghost King. And usually, a Ghost King is someone who survives the slaughter of other ghosts, and even Huacheng became a ghost king through that process, so he's very much aware of what's going on and he has the valuable information for Sholian. So here Sholian and Huacheng are not the only ones who are coming with them, but also Peiming, Junior Pei, and Banyu. Even Li Wei is there. I mean, there's a lot of like fun characters, and we also got some backstories of these characters. There's a strange mystery going on with this Mount Donglu area where the group encountered this ancient kingdom, and the story that he's able to unravel through these mysterious painting resembles Sherlan a lot. And I feel like this whole painting thing or this whole story that they're trying to uncover or like they are encountering, I feel like it's fake, to traumatize Sherlan more or to like taunt him because what has happened in his past and what he has experienced. I don't know, that's just a gut feeling I'm getting. Like, it doesn't make sense why these paintings are resembling so much Shivlan's own experience or like what has happened to him in the past. So I do think that it's kind of manipulation which is going on, but I could be wrong. There could be a really interesting backstory behind it, and all the characters are in a very dire situation, but Hwacheng and Shiolin are so ridiculously cute. Like, oh my god, they keep flirting the whole time, and even Paiming is like, huh, I know what's going on. Paiming, okay. Paiming is kind of a scumbag, but I think he was better than the other scumbag that we encounter, who is part of Lei Wei's backstory and how she became a heavenly official. She was appointed because of this heavenly official who used to be the scholarly sort of heavenly god. And what happened is that Li Mei kind of won this essay competition that he also took part. Like, why would he do that as a god? But he just wanted to do it so that people will praise him and give him all the attention that they already give. But she won, and no one realized who was the writer of this specific essay until Li Wei was caught, because the essay that she wrote was against the monarchy. And when he got to know about the identity of the writer, he appointed Li Wei to not like uplift her but to actually put her down. And this scumbag is so annoying. Pei Ming is no better, to be honest, but like, he doesn't really respect women and he just sees them as silly little things to flirt with. I don't think he's any less of a scumbag. I think he's just a different kind of a scumbag. Because while he has obvious flaws, he does respect Li Wei and her competence in a way that her former superior didn't. And then we have another backstory of this character. This backstory was really sad and very relatable too, because the whole idea that, efforts doesn't always get you what you want to do. And I mean, it's sad because even if like our efforts may not give us the result that we would like against the naturally born talented people. But I have to say that Yin Yu, let me see if that's how we pronounce his name. Is it Yin Yu or Yin Yu? Okay, right, it's Yin Yu, I think. And then who is the other character though? I keep forgetting the names. Yin Yu and Chuan Yijin. Yeah. And the relationship that Yin Yu and Chuan Yijun have is very heartbreaking too, because I do think that these two care about each other, especially in case of Chuan Yinju, because I feel like he never got to have any close relationship. Can I play this video? Chuan Yijun Ching, where we know that Chuan Yijun is quite talented and he's a little bit odd. Like, he's a goofball, honestly. He's very cute, by the way. He's very impulsive and he's like a child, honestly, and he doesn't has any bad intentions at the same time. And his backstory with Yunyu was also quite heartbreaking. It's complicated, but I do think that they can mend things up, even though a lot of like has gone down. I mean, throughout the whole time, Yunyu had so much patience with Chuan Yijun, someone who did not had the capability of understanding the social norms. He had a lot of patience with him, but at one point when he was a little bit weak mentally, so much happened. He got removed from the heavenly official, from the heavenly realm. He was stripped of his godhood, but the thing is that Hinyu was actually quite talented too, even though he may have seemed like this mediocre god, but then he got to become a god. And I think that's amazing in itself. So I think I will call this specific backstory to be really complicated, and I really like how MXTX is able to portray that. And then we got to know more about the Rainmaster. I think she has to be my favorite character. Why? Because she has helped Sholan in the past and she keeps her territory quite peaceful. She protects vulnerable people. She also gives shelter to the exiles, and then she doesn't really seek any type of glory. She just wants to have her own peace. She just continues to help people despite having a very sad past and also quite lonely too. So I think I just really like her calmness, and I wonder if we will be learning anything more about her in the future. And I really like how Pei Ming is involved with her, because I feel like the guy, he has something going on around her. Like, I don't know. Pei Ming is a scumbag, and it'll be fun to see if there's anything more, but I don't know. We shall see. Overall, I very much enjoyed this volume, and I can wait to start volume 6 because I don't want to cry. I honestly have no idea. I'm so scared because so many people have like scared me. They say that volume 6 is going to destroy you. And anyways, so I'm going to start with volume 6. I have actually started it. Where am I though? Yeah, so I'm going to start with volume 6 pretty soon. And I also started my module for my personal curriculum. I started the story of philosophy. I read the introduction and I'm now on page number 6. In the introduction itself, Durant is comparing science with philosophy and what kind of a role philosophy plays. And I found it very interesting because he says something like, the author believes that epistemology has kidnapped modern philosophy and nigh ruined it. He hopes for the time when the study of knowledge process will be recognized as the business of science of psychology, and when philosophy will again be understood as the synthetic interpretation of all experience rather than the analytic description of the mode and the process of experience itself. Analysis belongs to science and gives us knowledge, philosophy must provide a synthesis for wisdom. And I found it to be very interesting. Then he talks about how human beings need meaning in their life, and oftentimes philosophy helps them with it. When we are trying to find meaning, what exactly are we asking? We are asking what is the meaning of life? How do we live a good life? And all these questions that we have. So he's saying that science gives us facts, gives us knowledge, but it doesn't give us the wisdom that philosophy can give. Because through philosophy, we start to speculate, and later on, that speculation becomes precise and analytical, and that's how science comes up. And then we have art, which comes from the intuition and creativity. And I started to relate this idea with how algorithm works, because oftentimes we look at short form content, we see a lot of facts, a lot of tidbits, and just reactionary videos and whatnot. Like, it's a variety of things, right? But those facts don't really give us the answer that we're trying to seek to find meaning. And oftentimes I feel like algorithm is not really helping us to have any deeper idea or like any understanding, but instead it's trying to make us take position on different ideas. Because at this point, I guess science gives us knowledge, algorithm gives us information, but they don't really fulfill the role that we all are actually seeking. And it's very interesting, because as we are the generation of the internet, we are trying to understand how to live with the resources that we have now, because so many of us use the internet as like the basic communication tool to not just gain not to just talk to other people, but also to gain information, to learn things and whatnot. So it's very interesting. Like, I'm still trying to process this idea, but I have started the Plato part 2. Here, during just talking about Socrates, and honestly, Socrates is very interesting. To be honest, I would personally not really like him, because he doesn't seem a responsible guy taking care of his family or stuff like that. I mean, I may not have liked him much, but I would have loved talking to him, because the guy just makes you feel so confused with the way he asks questions, and he seeks to define the terms, and I don't know if I really agree with it or not, because I feel like, do we really have to define every single thing? I think we do, but those terms don't really have to be universal. They could be something very subjective too. I don't know. I'm actually having such a good time. I love to think about these things and just kind of go crazy, but I guess. Because at the same time, I'm thinking about how algorithm is structured, because it's not really for our benefit. No. And which is why I'm trying to stay off of Instagram a bit, though it's kind of hypocritical of me to say that, because I do post on Instagram and I post a lot of my short form videos there. So I do gain from the algorithm that I'm kind of criticizing right now, but I'm not really sure. I don't have to take an absolute position on it. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, so these are my reading updates for today, and oh my god, what happened to this book? I also have to start John of John by Douglas Stewart. I'm so excited for this book. I'm going to have such a good time reading this month, and I guess that's all I have for my update. I have not touched my tea at all. It's cold. This is why I should not yap too much. I should have just drank it. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna shut up now and I'll continue reading. Alright, so I have finished reading volume 6 of Heaven Official's Blessing, and a lot of people terrified me, saying that this would be the volume where Shulan suffers the most. And I'm not gonna lie, I knew some spoilers beforehand, but I don't think the suffering was really the point. The main point was what survives after everything has happened, when everything has been stripped away, where Shulan has lost his life as a prince, he lost his kingdom, he's lost his people because they turned away from him, he lost his parents and the two best friends he had. Moching leaves and Function leaves too, and I'll get into their role because it's very interesting. Whatever has happened in this arc actually shows how human relationship cannot really continue even if they are the best person that you meet. They're the individual that you really admire or adore. Certain relationships end up falling apart because of a lot of changes that happen to us as individuals or circumstances change. And I don't really blame Mooching for leaving early on because he didn't come from this privileged background like Sherlan was. He came from this poor background. He was pretty much the servant of Sherlan. And in this specific world, obviously, Sherlan being the prince, it was not at all weird for Mooching to do his laundry and cook for the king and the queen, who were in exile, by the way, because the kingdom has fallen and the king and the queen are on run with Sherlan and Function along with Mooching. So, like, why should Mooching stay behind and clean the clothes of the king and the queen when they're not even the king or queen anymore? So, why should he be there? When he has an old mother and he can't be a runaway when he has to take care of his family. So the point is that he had certain priorities which was why he couldn't stick around. And even when it came to Function stayed with Sherlan until the very end, until Sherlan changed. It was really heartbreaking how these two friends had to depart from each other. I think this was the most emotional part for me because these two, Moching and Function, they do care a lot about Sherlan, but because of circumstances and even Sherlan himself, they just couldn't be together. They just couldn't stick around and support him when he really needed it the most. I'll talk about Function in a bit because it's related to Sherlan and the things that he goes through. So I absolutely loved this arc. It kind of proved me right because when I was reading volume 3, I made a reel about Sherlan's journey resembling the hero's journey, and obviously he's the hero. When it comes to mythology and the hero story, we see a certain pattern in all of these stories, and this pattern is reflected in every single fiction mythology, and it's a part of our deeper unconscious self. Like we individuals carry information which are quite unconscious and we don't really know about them. We can say that this is the collective unconsciousness that Carl Jung was talking about. And in that specific reel, I talked about how the idea of refusing change doesn't really help because we always have to change as life goes on because the world will keep on changing and we can't just stay stuck up and be like, oh, I don't want to change. Because the moment we stop changing, the moment we stop evolving ourselves, we are actually left behind, not just by the world, but also by life itself. There are so many times where we face something which we fear. So when we actually face it and, get through the whole fearful thing or situation, we actually change, and this is like the small transformation which takes place. And in a very poetic manner or in this mythological manner, we can call it like a story of death and rebirth. So this is something that happens to a lot of people, especially with people who face a lot of trauma, and eventually they come back with more resilience. So the main point is that rebirth and death and rebirth is basically resilience playing a huge role in our own journeys. So I was very confused why I was getting certain comments saying that he didn't really change. Because Sherlan did change. I mean, what do you mean he didn't change? He did change. He changed in the best way possible. Change never has to be something which is negative. It is something that could be positive too. And change itself is a neutral term. So when we say that something changes, it's not always a negative thing. So the reason why Sherlan's kingdom falls was because of the white clothed calamity thing, where he caused the human face diseases, which was born out of the, what do you call it, grievances of dead people and who died because of the natural calamity which took place. Shilan's father was not able to do anything about it, and Shilan tried to help, but it didn't really work out. So, here he faces white calamity once again after he has lost every single thing, where he's not a prince anymore, he's running away from the soldiers of the new kingdom which has replaced his kingdom, and he doesn't has any money. He has to do busking, and he has to do something to survive, and it is something which is very humbling for him. So when he faces this guy, we can say that symbolically he's putting this experiment or this question upon Shilyan, where his argument is essentially that human beings are selfish, they will betray you when they're desperate, and they don't really deserve saving. So goodness itself is meaningless. And we can pretty much see that this guy is a cynic. And the point is that the white calamity guy doesn't really provide these arguments arbitrarily. He actually gives him the evidence. He manipulates the whole situation. He makes Shalyan suffer all these things where he tries to show the true nature of human beings. The white no face was basically the guy who was pushing the domino, and the falling was something which was happening. And the series is not really shy about the true human nature, it acknowledges it. So I don't think the main conflict was really about the good versus evil, but about hope and cynicism. And what happened to Sholyan made me think about mob psychology, 1984, and even Nazi Germany, because ordinary people are capable of cruelty that we will not expect. But that's the true nature of human beings. However, these cruel things happen under certain conditions, which could be due to obedience or a lot of different reasons, and it depends on the context too. But it doesn't really take away the fact that people are that people can do bad things to each other. And in a way, the no face guy is quite correct about human nature, but he's also wrong. Also wrong about the conclusion, because eventually Shilan realizes that if goodness only exists when people are good to you, then it's nothing but transaction. Before Shilan took the step to avenge himself and his family and what has happened to him, to see whether No Face's claims really stand or not. And this is why the bamboo hat scene matters so much, because it doesn't really destroys the no faces argument logically, but morally it does. A lot of people don't really help Shilan when he's lying on the ground in the human shaped pit where he was waiting for someone to come and help him. But a lot of people who try to do it, they couldn't do it because other people are saying that maybe something bad can happen. And he was waiting there for at least 2 days before he decided to release the human face disease again. And I think this is so important, where he was pretty much about to become an
antagonist.
where he was pretty much very close to becoming an antagonist. And I think that thing had to happen because he really had to break everything apart until he built something new. And this is how, the idea of death and rebirth takes place, where we have to destroy all the old beliefs we have that don't really serve us anymore. And we have to build something from the ruins of it. And this is the idea that Shilan's journey is reflecting. And after that, there was a moment of clarity where he decided to do this experiment and see whether people will really help him or not. And I think this proves the point that the answer to cynicism isn't to prove that everyone is good, but it is that there is still goodness, even if it's just once or it's something that is very brief or it's kind of imperfect too. But it is there. And the reason why I keep on saying that Sholan's journey is sort of a death and rebirth story, because as a young crown prince, the old Sholan had this idealized idea about humanity who wanted to save everyone, but the reality pretty much destroyed his way of thinking. So the new Sholan that we see, who isn't a naive hero anymore, he understands suffering, he understands resentment, and how easy it is to hate people. He's much more wiser. At the same time, he could also see how close he came to become what the No Face wanted. And after all of this, he still chose compassion. And this choice is far more meaningful than the compassion of a sheltered prince who couldn't really help people because he didn't really understand suffering at that point. And this is a change that Sholan goes through that I'm talking about. Alright, so about function. He left Sholan when Sholan pretty much lost his old self and he just didn't know what to do. And the king was sick and the queen was quite helpless. quite helpless at the same time, and they needed money, so he chose to go and steal from someone rich. His parents and Function could see how Shilyan has changed due to suffering, and Function realized that this is not the god that he was following. And Function and Shilyan had this friendship, but at the same time, it was pretty much this unequal relationship too, because Function was pretty much the subordinate who was serving Shilyan. So Function was following Shilyan as a leader, and when he saw that he can't really lead him anyway, and we can also say that this is two friends breaking their paths, breaking their relationship, because both of their paths have diverged and they don't really see any point of being together, and if they stay together, things will only go south, or go bad, go worse. So it makes sense why Function left too. While both of his friends left, Hua Cheng is different. He's really different, and you can see that Hua Cheng's example is not of a simple human being, because Mooching and Function do resemble the human nature a lot, but in case of Hua Cheng, is someone who is very persistent and someone who doesn't lose hope, and he has very strong determination, if that I can say, but his nature is very admirable in my opinion, and at the same time his unconditional love is just beautiful. Like, he's almost this unfair standard that we all have because his devotion almost border on the mythological line, or like something that's unreal, because Mooching and Function had this human limitation where they had their own pain and their own breaking points, where they also carried their own responsibilities. Many people cannot love like Hua Cheng. Many people cannot tolerate and suffer and endure like Hua Cheng, which is why he's special, okay? Human beings are like, not absolute angels or monsters. They're both, cruel and compassionate beings. We also carry selfishness, cowardliness, and generosity, courage, and love. So, the mistake that the White No Face, or the argument that the White No Face is making, is that he believed that people were purely bad, instead of understanding the nuances and the complexity that human beings carry. Even if out of 10 people, 9 people turn away, there will be this one person who will come and help you, especially if you need it, like the bamboo hat guy. And the idea that Hua Cheng loving, despite any version that Shilyan goes through, his love is kind of this acceptance of an individual along with their faults and vulnerabilities. So in a way, that Hua Cheng's love kind of represent the idea of acceptance that a lot of us seek, which is why the romance of Heaven Official's Blessing is one of the most healing aspect of it. So Mooching and Function leaving was not really betrayal, but just their tragic limitation. And in case of Hua Cheng, he's just the standard. Like, I mean, it's very unfair of a standard that he is setting, but it also represents this different idea of acceptance. And so we can say that Hua Cheng's love is the archetypical, that Hua Cheng's love represents the human desire of acceptance and belonging. And I hope I'm making sense, but anyways, this was my unstoppable rambling about Heaven Official's Blessing, and this is where I will end this vlog. I hope you enjoyed my nonsensical yapping, but I will be starting with volume 7 pretty soon. I'm very excited, and I don't want this to end, so I'm reading something else right now. I'm currently reading John of John by Douglas Stewart, and this is so beautiful, by the way. Anyway, so I'm taking it very slowly. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the vlog, and thank you so much for watching until this point. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hello.